Hello and welcome to the 1875 Talk Show. My name is Luke. I want to preface this video by giving an apology over to everyone. I think my emotions involving the news yesterday when it first broke got the better of me, and I will be adjusting the description of that video accordingly momentarily shortly after uploading this one. But this came out early today, I believe. It's from Almajir.net, Dan Ivery. I will be linking this article in the description below as well. I do beg everyone to go read his stuff. I think Dan has done an absolute fantastic job of putting over the truth, and he's gone above and beyond in many different ways. I also recommend going over to WAB TV and listening through the Meetings with the Mayor series that he does over there. Absolutely fantastic series. Both host and guest do an absolutely fantastic job of giving every bit of information they possibly can. But let's rock on to this, shall we? Car park presses. The Birmingham City Takeover roller coaster even, kicked back into high gear, or into gear on Tuesday in a spectacular fashion, with Paul Richardson and Maxi Lopez holding a fairly impromptu press conference in the St Andrews car park to confirm they were in the final stages of completing a takeover. I will admit honestly and upfront that the idea of Lopez and Richardson holding a press conference on the car park made me think of the first of Lawrence Bassini rocking up to the Nat and Lofthouse statue in Bolton with a megaphone to tell passing punters how he was going to take over the Trotters. Yet it was clear from the way Richardson spoke to the hastily assembled reporters that this was not another car crash interview by bankrupt Baz. Which was true. If you go and listen to the interviews that he did, it was very precise. He didn't say anything that he knew he wouldn't want to say. Richardson was clear that contracts had been exchanged and that were at the club to start taking a proper look at the day-to-day running of the place, and that there was an actual possibility that this summer of farce might actually come to a useful conclusion. Seeing Richardson and Lopez on the pitch at the carpet stand posing pictures did make it feel a bit like Michael Knighton, bearing in mind that the deal isn't completed. But the first time this summer, I think we have a bidder to actually take seriously, which is good. Other than bankrupt Bath press conference. Although I have since been told that Richard and Lopez were ambushed at the ground by Sky Sports, I think there was a very calculated air in that what the would-be new owners did today. This was no Passini publicity stunt. Although the press were there and there were interviews, the longer this went on, the more it seemed more of a power play aimed at Birmingham City Holdings and others based back in the Far East. What I think he means by that, from my point of view, is there has been no announcements of anything from Birmingham City. I think this was a way, for me, I think this was a way to force BSH to make an announcement or to show them that their time is running out and they have to make an announcement soon. If there had been absolutely nothing in this bid, then the club would have had a security escort people off the car park before a word was uttered. Well, that clearly didn't happen. Even if that sounded like it was heavy-handed, there seems absolutely no reason at all that the club would have allowed Lopez and Richardson to walk around like they own the place if there was nothing in their offer. The more I think about it, the cleverer I think the presser was, because it backed the club into a corner to act in a way that gave the credibility to the bid. True. When Bassini went on TalkSport, which time, the club sat back and laughed as the former Watford owner showed lack of credibility he had just by opening his mouth. That's an understatement. This was different. It was on club's turf and there was no real choice but to allow entrance to Lopez and Richardson. From what I know, Lopez and Richardson had a brief meeting with the directors Edward Gannon and Shane Wang Yao. I apologise if I'm massacring their names, but there is nothing to suggest anything of any serious import was discussed. Lopez and Richardson are due to meet John Eustace and Craig Gardner tomorrow. I believe that was meant to be today, with further suggests that something is afoot. On that one, I know a lot of fans are showing their displeasure of what might possibly be the exit of John Eustace. I believe there's something that Paul Richardson said yesterday that a lot of fans have said that they think he might get the Spanish Archer, so to speak, elbow. I'm not sure myself. I don't think they will. I think it'd be reckless to make that decision, especially considering the lads have had a few weeks training with him and they seem to be getting into a rhythm with him. Admitting that we lost both games yesterday, but I think it would be foolhardy to get rid of John Eustace at this moment. However, although this both BSH and BCFC have kept their own counsel, I heard suggestion that BSH was requested to make a simultaneous announcement, which they allegedly declined. Interesting. Whether that is true or not, I cannot say, as I've only heard it from one source. But the fact remains that without official confirmation from Hong Kong, we're left trying to understand what is going on, and assumptions and guesses. This needs to be rectified soon, lest this drag on. And that's a very good point. There is no official announcement from either BCFC or BSH. We are currently again in another situation where it's just, well, we'll wait and see. The bid. Richardson has clearly picked up a thing or two from what has gone on, as he was much coyer in talking how his consortium bid for the club would work and how much that was being put in. Richardson did say on his TalkSport interview that the money was partly in the consortiums and partly finance, which has raised a few heckles of the fans. The implication that Richardson's consortium has raised finance for just the first triage of payments, but the truth is we don't actually have enough information to decide that if the finance is to pay the deposit or the whole sum needed or to fund the club for next season. I did read somewhere, I can't remember where it was, but I did read somewhere the deposit was roughly about 1.5 million. I don't know how accurate that was, because that was, I think it was somewhere on Twitter. I can't remember. If I can find it, I will link a description down below. I'll be honest, my attitude to financing is relaxed on the caveat that none of the finances raised by Richard's consortium will be leveraged onto the club in the same way ALK Capital has with Burnley. If Richardson et al. Want to borrow money to buy the club, that's their decision, as long as it's them who has to pay it back. It's down to them to service their own debts, and they'll be found out quickly if they don't. That is true. Likewise, from the questions I put myself to Richardson, I now understand that rather than buying 21.64% stake in the club and the stadium from Oriental Investments and Achiever Group Global Group, his consortium is buying those two companies outright. Okay, I did not know that. While it makes sense to me that those companies, while it makes sense to me to take those companies over, there is an arrangement between ORI and BSH whereby ORI compensates 75% of the club's losses to the championship to BSH. I can only hope Richardson's lawyers have shut that clause down immediately, so they're not effectively playing twice to keep the club going. Then there's the arrangement to take over remaining 75% of BSH. When Richardson spoke to Brian Dick on the Birmingham Mail on the Facebook video, Richardson insisted that the deal was ironclad and it would happen in the next 2 years. Again, I sincerely hope for the sake of Richardson and his consortium, the agreement is watertight, as it would be a horrific situation to end up as a minority investor simply because someone at BSH changed their mind. And that is a real possibility. I hate to say it, but as a 21.64, 75, it's a lot. You know what I mean? That is a possibility. There is one thing to remember in this that is not complete yet. Richardson has said himself that documents have been filed with the EFL, which will take a few weeks to process. These documents won't be just owners and directors tests, things. Richardson will need to show he has the money to run the club for at least a season in the bank already. With the stuff that has gone on this summer already at Pride Park, I can imagine the EFL would want to go through those with a fine-tooth comb just to make sure every I is dotted and every single T is crossed. There is one immediate problem that EFL will have to make a decision about, however. This is something that I am still researching, and I am going to do a follow-up video on. I just have been super busy today. Matt Southall. I know I've heard a lot of fans, and I want to preface this bit before I read it by saying there was also a lot of fans willing to give Bassini another go. Now, I'm not saying that everything that Matt Southall has done should be swept under the carpet and forgiven, nor am I saying he should be given a chance. What I am saying is that there was a lot of people willing to give Bassini the same leeway. Paul Richardson has been nothing but open so far. He has been honest and open in every single bit of communication he has had. Back when Bassini had exclusivity, Paul Richardson confirmed that he had not been contacted by the club. I am firmly if it was just the two choices, Bassini or the Paul Richardson Consortium, I am in the Paul Richardson Consortium camp. As far as I'm aware, from again listening to the podcast, meeting with the mayor, there are other bidders out there. Whether the problem is those bidders are so secretive, which is a good thing, I suppose, that we don't know anything about them. But let's read on. There is quite a lot of things that happened today which have made me think better of this deal. One thing remains on a huge red flag that I believe needs to rectify before it goes through. I've always admired Brian Dick as an interviewer with his dogged pursuit on the subject of a new CEO, ensured that Paul Richardson confirmed that the rumours have been saying that the disappointment of the CEO will be Matt Southall. For those who don't know what Matt Southall is, he has been. I've spoke about this before. Why I don't want him anywhere near Blues. There's a good read about him on the Charlton Dossier website, which I am currently reading. I'm also reading everything that Dan Ivery has said before, which I think everyone should read before making their minds up. Southall was a disastrous appointment as CEO at Charlton, picking up a civil conviction in the end for falsifying information at the company's house. At the time, there were all sorts of allegations about Southall spending while CEO, which did not make for good reading. I know bits and pieces, something to do with Range Rovers, flats, and decorators. I believe there was also an incident where he was in a board meeting and he had his barber present, giving him a haircut. Again, I remember reading that as it happened off the cuff. I'm still researching the Southall situation at Charlton. I want to do, I want to do a follow-up video on it to make sure everyone is apprised of the situation. Richardson has told Brian Dick that he'd known Southall for years and that he knew of his history at Charlton and that he still trusted him to do the job. I'll be honest and say I've told Richardson on 3 separate occasions that I think Southall is a massive red flag, and it would make things much easier for Richardson and his bid if he kicked his would-be CEO into touch. I've actually had some dealings with Southall myself back in 2014 while running the often partisan website. Southall was texting me on an almost daily basis about his BCFC 2014 group trying to buy the club, a group which also contained Paul Richardson. That bid was apparently rejected out of hand back then by Birmingham International Holdings, as they were then due to lack of clarity on where the money was coming from. Now, obviously, things have changed. It is Richardson fronting the deal rather than Southall, and it sounds like a completely different setup. Rather than just cascade Southall on these pages, I'm willing to make an offer. If Southall fronts up and emails me or texts me, I'm willing to interview him and allow him to put his side of the story forward as to why we shouldn't see him as a red flag. Whether he gets in touch or not, I do not know. The key thing to remember in all of this is the deal is not yet complete. While contracts have been exchanged and Instagram scriptures taken on the pitch, there is always a chance that something may arise which causes issues. And let's face it, this is Blues, and that happens quite often than not. The last details aren't going to go through overnight either. This is reflected somewhat in the hourglass that now sits on the Maxco Capital website. That hourglass, to be precise. The EFL will need to do their job. BSH will need to make at least one announcement confirming Von Peck has exited or ORI, and the club will need to update us to confirm it's all done. This may be the beginning of the end for all those people out there hanging their hopes on it. I sincerely hope it is. While BSH won't exit fully from owning the club for 2 years, I hope that Richardson can live up to his word and get the club on the right path once he completes, regardless of what BSH get up to. Now, again, I am currently still researching the Matt Southall situation. There is a lot to go through, and I am reading it. Again, I want to say again, I do apologise for my video yesterday. I believe the emotions of the situation got the better of me, and I will be adjusting the description of that video accordingly. I'm still hopeful about the Paul Richardson situation, about the Paul Richardson bid. I am hopeful. I will admit that Maxi Lopez looked like a rabbit in headlights when the Sky News interviewer started talking to him, and there was lots of looks sideways to Paul Richardson in a way to say, "Can you please take this question? I don't want to say anything." But given the fact that they were ambushed in the car park, from what this article says, I kind of understand. Now, we, as Blues fans, we all know the history that the EFL have with us. Are the EFL going to deliberately put a spanner in the works? I don't see how they would. But having Matt Southall on the bid does make it a bit easier for them to put the spanner in the works. That being said, again, there was a lot of fans who I got some stick from saying that Bassini should be given a chance. There is also a lot of fans that saying he shouldn't. I have seen very few fans saying Matt Southall should be given a chance. I have seen a lot of fans say he is a massive red flag. I agree he is a red flag. Should he be given a chance? I think that question is out of our hands. But let's face it, As Birmingham City fans, we are more than accustomed to protesting our owners and the board if needed. Dong Ren comes to mind. So, in my view, as long as Paul Richardson can keep Matt Southall on a very short leash until trust is earned, not given, then this, to me, is a positive. Now, do I trust Matt Southall? Not in any way, shape, or form. As I say, trust has to be earned, not given, and he hasn't exactly got the best track record. But we shall see what happens as time goes. I am also want to say I am loving the Diego Costa memes that I am seeing on Facebook. Apparently he's been spotted at Costa Coffee in Birmingham with Ashley Airport, and he's also been spotted at Dixie Chicken in Birmingham as well. So I'm loving these. That's fantastic. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. I think this video has been a lot more of a tempered one than yesterday's one. Let me know what you think about everything about the Paul Richardson Consortium, about the Matt Southall takeover, CEO position. Let me know in the comments. Please like, share, subscribe. I think we've hit 112 recording, and that is fantastic considering I've only been doing this for a couple of weeks. I'm amazed and just humbled by the support. But please, get liking, get sharing, get subscribing. Brilliant. Thank you very much. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.